The abduction, the gentle hum of computers and the soft glow of monitors filled Dr. Alexis Chen's dimly lit laboratory. Surrounded by whiteboards covered in complex equations and stacks of research papers, the 32-year-old physicist hunched over her desk, her dark eyes fixed on the screen before her. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, but time held little meaning in this sanctuary of science. Alexis brushed a strand of black hair from her face, her brow furrowed in concentration. For years, she had dedicated her life to unraveling the mysteries of quantum mechanics and energy manipulation. Her theories were groundbreaking, pushing the boundaries of known physics. Yet, she chose to work in isolation, away from the prying eyes of the scientific community and the distractions of the outside world. Little did she know that her solitude was about to be shattered in the most extraordinary way imaginable. A sudden flicker of the lights caught Alexis' attention. She glanced up, momentarily distracted from her work. The air in the lab seemed to thicken, charged with an inexplicable energy. Before she could process what was happening, a brilliant flash of blue light erupted in the center of the room. Alexis stumbled back, shielding her eyes from the intense glow. As the light faded, she lowered her arm, her jaw dropping in disbelief at the sight before her. Standing in the middle of her lab was a tall, slender figure unlike anything Alexis had ever seen. The being's skin shimmered with an iridescent blue hue, its large, almond-shaped eyes a deep, mesmerizing purple. Dressed in a form-fitting suit that seemed to shift and change colors like oil on water, the alien, for what else could it be, regarded Alexis with a mixture of curiosity and urgency. Dr. Alexis Chen, the alien spoke, its voice melodious yet tinged with an otherworldly resonance. "I am Zara, and I come from a world far beyond your solar system. I need your help." Alexis blinked, her scientific mind racing to make sense of the impossible situation before her. This can't be real," she muttered, reaching out to steady herself against her desk. Zara took a step forward, her movements fluid and graceful. "I assure you, Dr. Chen, this is very real. My world, Nixon, faces imminent destruction. Your research, your understanding of energy manipulation, may be the key to our survival." The gravity in Zara's voice pierced through Alexis' shock. Despite the surreal nature of the situation, her scientific curiosity began to take hold. "How do you know about my work? And how could it possibly help your world?" Zara's expression softened, a hint of admiration crossing her alien features. "We have been monitoring Earth's scientific advancements for some time. Your theories on quantum energy fields and their manipulation are far beyond those of your peers. They align closely with the principles that power our world, but our understanding has become stagnant. We need a fresh perspective, an outside view that could revitalize our failing systems." Alexis's mind reeled with the implications. Her work, theoretical as it was, could have practical applications on an alien world. The scientist in her yearned to know more, to see this advanced civilization and learn from them. But the recluse, the part of her that had hidden away from the world, resisted. I can't just leave," Alexis stammered. "My work here, my life." Zora's eyes dimmed, a visible manifestation of her despair. "Dr. Chen, I understand your hesitation, but you must understand, millions of lives hang in the balance. Our planet's energy grid is failing. Without intervention, Nixon will become uninhabitable within weeks. You are our last hope." The weight of Zara's words settled on Alexis's shoulders. She had always dreamed that her research would one day make a difference, but this was beyond anything she could have imagined. The fate of an entire civilization resting on her shoulders. "How long?" Alexis asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How long would I be gone?" Zara's expression brightened slightly. "Time flows differently between our worlds. What might be weeks on Nixon would translate to mere days on Earth. You would be back before your absence was noted." Alexis took a deep breath, her decision crystallizing in her mind. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, not just to prove her theories, but to save countless lives. to make a real, tangible difference in the universe. "All right," she said, straightening her posture and meeting Zara's gaze. "I'll come with you. I'll do what I can to help." Relief washed over Zara's features. "Thank you, Dr. Chen. Your courage will not be forgotten." She extended a hand, her long fingers shimmering in the lab's artificial light. "We must leave immediately. Are you ready?" Alexis glanced around her lab, at the familiar equipment and stacks of research that had been her whole world for so long. In a matter of moments, her life had been turned upside down. Yet, she felt a surge of excitement, of purpose, that she hadn't experienced in years. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied, reaching out to take Zara's hand. The moment their fingers touched, the lab around them began to blur. Alexis felt a tingling sensation spread through her body, as if every atom was vibrating at a new frequency. The world stretched and distorted, colors swirling into a dizzying vortex. In a flash of brilliant light, Alexis Chen, the reclusive physicist from Earth, vanished from her lab. Her incredible journey to save an alien world had begun, and with it, a new chapter in the story of humanity's place in the cosmos. As the light faded and the lab fell silent, the only evidence of the extraordinary encounter was a single equation hastily scribbled on a nearby whiteboard, an equation that would one day bridge the gap between two worlds and usher in a new era of cosmic understanding. "Welcome to Nixon." The journey across the cosmos lasted mere moments, yet to Alexis, it felt like an eternity. As the swirling vortex of light and energy dissipated, she found herself gasping for breath, her senses overwhelmed by the sudden transition. "Easy," Zora's melodious voice soothed, her hand steadying Alexis. "The first interstellar jump can be disorienting. Take a moment to adjust." As her vision cleared, Alexis, the scientific mind, kicked into overdrive, trying to process the alien world around her. They stood on a platform in what appeared to be a vast, domed structure. The architecture was unlike anything she had ever seen, organic yet precisely engineered, with sweeping curves and impossible geometries that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "Welcome to Nixon," Dr. Chen, Zara said, a hint of pride and sadness mingling in her voice. Alexis's gaze was drawn to the massive windows that lined the dome. Outside, a landscape of shimmering crystal spires and floating platforms stretched as far as the eye could see. The sky was a deep indigo, streaked with ribbons of iridescent energy that pulsed and flowed like auroras. "It's incredible," Alexis breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. Zora nodded, but her expression remained grave. "What you see is the last bastion of our civilization. Beyond these protected cities, our world is dying." As if on cue, a tremor shook the building. The lights flickered, and for a brief moment, Alexis saw the sky outside darken, the protective energy field wavering. "That," Zara explained, "is why we brought you here. Come, let me show you." They stepped onto a hovering platform that whisked them through the city. As they traveled, Zara explained the intricacies of Nixonian technology. Their civilization was built on the manipulation of quantum energy fields, harnessing the very fabric of space-time to power their world. Buildings, vehicles, even their medical technology, all of it was interconnected in a vast, planet-wide network of energy. "Our ancestors built this system eons ago," Zara said as they approached a massive, pulsating structure at the heart of the city. "The cosmic nexus, we call it. It's the central hub of our energy grid, drawing power from the quantum foam of the universe itself." They entered the nexus, and Alexis found herself surrounded by holographic displays and swirling vortexes of energy. Nixonian scientists bustled about, their faces etched with concern as they monitored the fluctuating readouts. For millennia, the Nexus provided unlimited, clean energy for our entire world, Zora continued. But in recent years, it's been failing. The energy output is decreasing, and we don't understand why. Alexis approached one of the displays, her mind already racing to decipher the alien symbols and equations. "These patterns," she murmured, "they're similar to the quantum fluctuations I've been studying. but on a scale I never imagined possible. A tall, distinguished-looking Nixonian approached them. "Zara, is this the human scientist?" he asked, his tone a mixture of hope and skepticism. Zara nodded. "Yes, Counselor Vex. This is Dr. Alexis Chen. Dr. Chen, this is Counselor Vex, head of our science division." Vex regarded Alexis with piercing silver eyes. "Dr. Chen, I hope Zara hasn't exaggerated your abilities. Our situation is dire." Alexis straightened, meeting the counselor's gaze. "I'll do everything in my power to help, Counselor, but I need to understand the full scope of the problem." Vex gestured to a nearby console. With a wave of his hand, a three-dimensional model of Nixon appeared, surrounded by pulsing energy fields. "Our planet is unique in the galaxy," he explained. "It exists in a state of quantum flux, perpetually facing between dimensions. The cosmic nexus harnesses this flux, providing energy and maintaining the stability of our world." As Alexis watched, the model began to flicker, parts of the planet fading in and out of existence. "But now," Vex continued, his voice heavy, "the nexus is failing. Our world is losing cohesion. If we can't restore the system, Nixon will phase out of this dimension entirely, taking our entire civilization with it." The magnitude of the crisis hit Alexis like a physical blow. This wasn't just about saving an alien world, it was about preserving an entire dimension of existence. "How long?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "At the current rate of decay," Vex replied, "we have less than 2 weeks before the phase shift becomes irreversible." 2 weeks. In the span of a single day, Alexis had gone from a reclusive Earth physicist to the last hope of an alien civilization teetering on the brink of interdimensional annihilation. "I'll need access to all your research," Alexis said, her shock giving way to determination. "Every scrap of data on the Nexus, its history, and the planet's unique properties. And I'll need a team, your brightest minds, to work with me." Vex and Zara exchanged glances, a flicker of hope passing between them. "You'll have everything you need, Dr. Chen," Vex assured her. "But remember, time is not on our side." As if to emphasize his point, another tremor shook the Nexus. The lights dimmed, and for a heart-stopping moment, the holographic displays flickered out of existence. When they returned, the model of Nixon showed even more of the planet fading away. Alexis took a deep breath, steeling herself for the monumental task ahead. "Then we'd better get started," she said, her voice filled with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. "We've got a world to save." As Zara led her deeper into the Nexus, towards the labs where she would begin her work, Alexis's mind raced with possibilities. The challenges were immense, the stakes unimaginably high. But amidst the fear and uncertainty, a small part of her thrilled at the opportunity. This was science on a scale she had never dreamed possible. In just a few short hours, her understanding of the universe had expanded beyond measure. Now, it was time to put that knowledge to the test, to push the boundaries of physics itself and find a way to anchor an entire world in the fabric of reality. The fate of Nixon, and perhaps the very nature of existence itself, rested in her hands, and Alexis Chen, the once reclusive physicist from Earth, was ready to rise to the challenge. Unconventional solutions. Elena Reeves stood before the Zarkai High Council, her heart pounding but her voice steady. The alien leaders, with their iridescent skin and compound eyes, regarded her with a mixture of hope and skepticism. The chamber's bioluminescent walls pulsed with an anxious energy, mirroring the tension in the room. "Esteemed Council," Elena began, her translator device converting her words into the musical tones of the Zarkai language. "I've analyzed your current approaches to stabilizing Kepler 186's atmosphere. While impressive, they're not sufficient to prevent the impending collapse. We need to think outside the box, way outside." Head Counselor Zilix leaned forward, his antennae twitching with interest. "Explain, Dr. Reeves. What do you propose?" Elena took a deep breath. "On Earth, We have a saying, sometimes you need to fight fire with fire. In this case, we need to fight atmospheric degradation with controlled atmospheric manipulation. She activated a holographic display showing a schematic of Kepler-186f. Your world's problem stems from the increasing instability of your magnetosphere, which is allowing your atmosphere to be stripped away by solar winds. Traditional methods of replenishing the atmosphere won't work fast enough. Instead, I propose we create an artificial magnetosphere. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the council chamber. Councillor Vex, known for his conservative views, rose to his feet. Preposterous. The energy requirements alone make this impossible, not to mention the risk of destabilizing our entire planetary system. Elena nodded, acknowledging the concern. You're right, Councillor. With current Zarkai technology, it would be impossible, but that's where human ingenuity comes in. She manipulated the hologram, zooming in on the planet's poles. On Earth, we've been experimenting with something called a plasma shield to protect astronauts from cosmic radiation. By adapting this technology and combining it with your advanced energy manipulation techniques, we can create a series of massive plasma generators at your planet's poles. The hologram changed, showing streams of charged particles emanating from the poles and enveloping the planet. These generators would create a controlled stream of ionized particles, essentially giving Kepler-186 an artificial magnetic field. This would deflect the solar winds and buy us time to replenish and stabilize the atmosphere. The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of excited and alarmed chatter. Elena waited, her heart racing, as the Zarkai leaders debated among themselves in rapid, musical tones. Finally, head councillor Zilix raised a hand for silence. Dr. Rees, your proposal is audacious, but the risks are enormous. How can we be certain this won't cause more harm than good? Elena stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. We start small. We build a prototype generator and test it in a controlled environment. Your simulation technology is far beyond ours. We can model every possible outcome before we even think about full-scale implementation. She turned, addressing the entire council. I know I'm asking you to take a leap of faith, but right now, faith in a radical solution might be all that stands between Kepler-186 and oblivion. The council chamber fell silent, the weight of the decision hanging heavy in the air. Then slowly, Councillor Thala, the youngest member of the leadership, stood up. I say we give Dr. Rees a chance. What do we have to lose that we're not already losing? Over the next few weeks, Elena worked tirelessly with a team of Zarkai scientists to bring her vision to life. The fusion of human theoretical knowledge and Zarkai technological prowess proved to be a powerful combination. Progress that might have taken years on Earth happened in a matter of days. In a vast underground laboratory, Elena stood before the prototype plasma generator. The machine hummed with power, its core glowing with an otherworldly light. Zarkai scientists scurried around, making final adjustments and checks. Ready for the first test, announced Kira, Elena's primary Zarkai assistant. Her exoskeleton gleamed under the lab lights, and her compound eyes reflected a mix of excitement and apprehension. Elena nodded, her mouth dry with anticipation. Initiate startup sequence. The generator's hum deepened, the glow intensifying. On a nearby holographic display, a miniature model of Kepler-186 flickered to life, surrounded by simulated solar winds. As the generator reached full power, a shimmering field began to form around the model planet. The lab erupted in cheers as the simulated solar winds were deflected, curving harmlessly around the protected planet. Elena let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, tears of joy and relief stinging her eyes. It works, she whispered, then louder, it works. The news of the successful test spread rapidly through the Zarkai population. For the first time in years, a sense of hope began to take hold. Plans for full-scale implementation were quickly drawn up. with construction of the massive polar generators beginning almost immediately. However, not everyone shared in the optimism. As Elena and her team worked to refine and scale up the technology, opposition began to grow among certain factions of Zarkai society. "This is an abomination," Councillor Vex shouted during a particularly heated council session. "We're placing the fate of our entire world in the hands of an alien and her untested theories. Our ancestors would be ashamed of our desperation." The conservative faction, led by Vex, began to organize protests. They argued that the artificial magnetosphere was an unnatural solution that went against the cosmic order. Some even suggested that the humans' plan was part of a long-term strategy to make Kepler-186 habitable for Earth colonization. Despite the growing tensions, construction continued. Elena worked around the clock, pushing herself to the limit. She knew that every day counted. Kepler-186's atmosphere was degrading faster than initially predicted. 3 months after her arrival on the alien world, Elena stood with head councillor Zilix at the primary control center for the polar generators. Through the panoramic windows, she could see the massive structures stretching towards the pink-tinged sky, their tips disappearing into the clouds. "We're ready," Elena said, her voice hoarse from long nights of preparation and debate. Zilix nodded sullenly. "Then let us proceed, Dr. Reeves. May the cosmos favor your boldness." With a deep breath, Elena initiated the startup sequence. The generators hummed to life, their energy building to a crescendo. The sky above began to shimmer, waves of charged particles spreading out from the poles. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, the color of the sky began to change. The constant atmospheric haze that had plagued Kepler-186 for years started to thin. "Atmospheric readings are stabilizing," reported a Zarkai technician, his voice trembling with excitement. "Solar wind deflection at 98% efficiency and rising." A cheer went up in the control room. Elena felt lightheaded with relief and exhilaration. They had done it. The first major step in saving Kepler-186 had been achieved. As the team celebrated, Elena stepped away for a moment, gazing out at the alien landscape. The air outside already looked clearer, the true beauty of Kepler-186 beginning to reveal itself. But Elena knew their work was far from over. The artificial magnetosphere was just the beginning. They still had to replenish and rebalance the atmosphere, stabilize the planet's core, and navigate the political minefield that their success had inadvertently created. As if on cue, an alert sounded from the communication console. "Dr. Reeves," called one of the operators, "we're receiving reports of sabotage attempts at the Southern Generator Complex. The opposition is mobilizing." Elena's moment of triumph was cut short as the reality of their situation came crushing back. They had won the first battle, but the war to save Kepler-186 and to bridge the gap between two vastly different civilizations was only just beginning. With a determined set to her jaw, Elena turned back to the control room. "All right, people," she announced, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "Let's get to work. We've got a planet to save." As the Zarkai team rallied around her, Elena felt a surge of pride and purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew that the combined strength of human ingenuity and Zarkai determination would see them through. The future of Kepler-186 and perhaps the future of interstellar cooperation depended on it. Race against time. The control room of the planetary monitoring station was a hive of frantic activity. Zarkai scientists rushed between holographic displays, their usual grace replaced by urgent, jerky movements. In the center of it all stood Elena Reeves, her face illuminated by the pulsing red warning lights that bathed the room. "Report," she called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. Kira, her trusted Zarkai assistant, approached with a data pad. "It's not good, Elena. The artificial magnetosphere is holding, but we're detecting massive fluctuations in the planet's core. seismic activity is increasing exponentially. Elena's heart sank as she studied the readouts. The numbers confirmed her worst fears. Their efforts to stabilize the atmosphere had inadvertently accelerated the destabilization of Kepler-186's core. "How long do we have?" she asked, dreading the answer. Kira's compound eyes flickered with distress. "At the current rate of deterioration, total core collapse within 3 standard rotations. Once that happens, the planet tears itself apart." Elena finished grimly. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "All right, we need to act fast. Call an emergency meeting with the High Council and our top scientists. We need to implement planet-wide changes immediately." As Kira rushed to arrange the meeting, Elena turned her attention back to the holographic display of Kepler-186f. The planet's core pulsed an angry red, unstable energy patterns rippling outward. She had come so far, achieved so much. She couldn't let it all fall apart now. Hours later, Elena stood before a joint session of the High Council and the planet's leading scientific minds. The tension in the room was palpable, fear and desperation etched on every alien face. "The situation is critical," Elena began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Our efforts to stabilize the atmosphere have put additional strain on the planet's already weakened core. We need to implement a series of radical changes to redistribute the energy and stabilize the core." She outlined her plan, a combination of massive energy sinks to absorb the excess core energy, strategically placed resonance generators to dampen the seismic activity, and a planet-wide network of stabilization fields. "It's ambitious," she admitted, "and it will require every available resource and worker, but it's our best chance to prevent total planetary collapse." Head Councillor Zilix nodded gravely. "You have the full support of the Council, Dr. Reeves. Whatever you need, it's yours." The next 2 rotations were a blur of activity. Elena worked tirelessly alongside her Zarkai allies, coordinating teams across the planet as they raced to implement her plan. Sleep became a luxury, meals reduced to quick energy supplements as they pushed themselves to the limit. But even as they made progress, new challenges arose. Reports of sabotage began to filter in, equipment mysteriously malfunctioning, power supplies disrupted, key personnel delayed or waylaid. "It's the purists," Hira explained during a rare moment of respite. "They believe our intervention is against the natural order. They think letting the planet die is preferable to accepting help from an outsider." Elena felt a surge of frustration and anger. Don't they understand what's at stake? This isn't about ideology, it's about survival. Despite the setbacks, they pressed on. As they neared the end of the 2nd rotation, signs of improvement began to show. The core fluctuations were decreasing, seismic activity starting to stabilize. But it wasn't enough. As they entered the final rotation, it became clear that their efforts, while slowing the degradation, wouldn't be sufficient to prevent the collapse. In the depths of exhaustion, with time slipping away, Elena had an epiphany. She burst into the control room, startling the weary scientists. "I know how we can save the planet," she announced, her eyes bright with a mixture of excitement and fear. "But it's incredibly risky." As the team gathered around, Elena laid out her plan. "The core is unstable because it's lost its natural magnetic field. The artificial magnetosphere we created is external. It's not addressing the root of the problem. What we need to do is restart the planet's own magnetic field." She pulled up a schematic of Kepler-186's core. "We use the energy sinks we've set up to collect the excess core energy. Then, we channel that energy back into the core in a massive coordinated pulse. If we get the timing and the energy levels just right, it should jumpstart the planet's dynamo effect, re-establishing the natural magnetic field." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. It was Kira who finally spoke. "Elena, the energy required, it would mean shutting down every other system on the planet. We'd be completely vulnerable, and if the calculations are off by even a fraction..." The core could go critical, tearing the planet apart instantly. Elena finished. I know, but it's our only chance. We're out of time and out of options. Head Counselor Zilix, who had been listening silently, stepped forward. The risks are enormous, Dr. Reeves, but I don't see that we have any choice. You have my authorization to proceed. As the team scrambled to make the necessary preparations, Elena retreated to a quiet corner of the control room. The weight of what they were about to attempt pressed down on her. In a matter of hours, she would either save an entire world or be responsible for its destruction. She thought of Earth so far away, of the life she had left behind, and the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. Whatever happened, she knew she had given everything she had to this mission. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. It was time. Elena straightened her shoulders and walked back to the main control panel. Around her, Zarkai scientists watched with a mixture of hope and fear. Are we ready? She asked, her voice steady. Kira nodded, her alien features set with determination. All systems a go. Energy sinks are at maximum capacity. The planet-wide pulse is synchronized and ready for your command. Elena took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the activation control. In this moment, she carried the fate of an entire civilization in her hands. May the stars guide us, she whispered, echoing a Zarkai prayer she had heard so often in these past months. Then, with a silent prayer of her own, Elena brought her hand down on the control. The room plunged into darkness as every system on the planet went offline. For a heart-stopping moment, there was complete silence. Then, the world began to tremble. The final gambit. The air in the launch bay was thick with tension as Elena Reeves stepped into the experimental deep-core vessel. The sleek, pod-like craft gleamed under the harsh lights, its hull reinforced to withstand the immense pressures and temperatures of Kepler-186's interior. Kira, Elena's Zarkai assistant, approached with a final systems check. Her compound eyes reflected a mix of admiration and concern. Elena, are you certain about this? The risks. Unnecessary, Elena finished, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. We're out of options, Kira. If we don't stabilize the core now, everything we've done will be for nothing. Head Counselor Zilix stepped forward, his usually melodious voice grave. Dr. Reeves, on behalf of all Zarkai, I thank you for your courage. May the cosmic winds guide you safely. Elena nodded, swallowing hard. With a final glance at the assembled team, aliens she now considered friends and colleagues, she sealed the craft's hatch. The journey began with a violent lurch as the vessel was launched into a specially bored shaft leading to the planet's depths. Elena gritted her teeth, her hands flying over the controls as she navigated the treacherous descent. Stage 1 complete, she reported through the comm system, entering the upper mantle now. As the craft plunged deeper, the view screen showed a hellish landscape of roiling magma and crystalline structures. The vessel groaned under the increasing pressure, but held firm, a testament to the combined ingenuity of human and Zarkai engineering. Suddenly, alarms blared. Elena's eyes widened as she read the incoming data. Control, I'm detecting massive fluctuations in the core's magnetic field. It's destabilizing faster than we predicted. Kira's voice crackled over the comm, tight with worry. Elena, we're registering seismic activity planet-wide. Whatever you're going to do, it needs to happen now. Elena's mind raced. They had planned for this, but not so soon. With swift, decisive movements, she initiated the next phase of the mission. Deploying magnetic resonators, she announced, her fingers dancing across the control panel. A series of specialized probes shot out from the craft, burrowing into the surrounding material. The vessel shuddered violently as it pushed deeper, approaching the outer core. Warning lights flashed across the console. Hull integrity was reaching its limits. I'm almost in position, Elena reported, her voice strained. Prepare to activate the planetary electromagnetic pulse on my mark. As she spoke, A massive tremor rocked the craft. Elena was thrown against her restraints, crying out as pain lanced through her shoulder. On the viewscreen, she watched in horror as fissures began to form in the craft's hull. "Elena." Kira's panicked voice came through. "Your life support is failing. You need to abort." But Elena knew she couldn't turn back. Not now, when they were so close. "Negative," she grunted, fighting through the pain. "We won't get another shot at this. Activating core stabilization sequence. Now." With a final Herculean effort, Elena engaged the system. The resonators hummed to life, generating a complex electromagnetic field designed to realign the planet's core. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the craft's sensors lit up like a Christmas tree. The core's erratic magnetic field began to smooth out, falling into a more stable rhythm. "It's working," Elena exclaimed, a mixture of relief and disbelief in her voice. "The core is stabilizing." But her triumph was short-lived. As the planet's core settled, a massive energy wave surged outward. The already damaged craft stood no chance. "Elena, get out of there," Kira screamed over the comm. Elena's hands flew over the controls, initiating the emergency ascent protocol, but it was too late. The energy wave struck the vessel with devastating force. Systems failed across the board as the craft was violently hurled upward through the planet's layers. Elena's world became a blur of pain, alarms and flashing emergency lights. She clung to consciousness by a thread, knowing that her survival and the data from the mission depended on her staying awake. After what seemed like an eternity, the craft burst through the planet's surface in a geyser of molten rock. Emergency systems deployed a series of parachutes, slowing its descent as it crashed onto a desolate plain. In the control center, the Sci-Fi team watched in horror as Elena's life signs fluctuated dangerously. "Dispatch rescue teams immediately," Zilix ordered, his voice cracking with emotion. Hours later, as teams worked frantically to cut through the mangled craft, Elena drifted in and out of consciousness. Through the haze of pain, she became aware of a change in the air around her. It felt cleaner somehow, more alive. As the rescue team finally broke through, Elena's eyes fluttered open. Through the twisted opening of the craft, she saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. The sky above was clear and blue, a sight not seen on Kepler 186f in generations. In the distance, she could make out the shimmer of the restored magnetic field, protecting the planet once more. A weak smile touched Elena's lips as the rescuers reached her. "We did it," she whispered, before finally succumbing to unconsciousness. As the Sci-Fi medical team rushed Elena to the most advanced healing facility, news of her success and sacrifice spread across the planet. The core was stable. The magnetic field was restored. Kepler 186f, against all odds, had been saved. But the question on everyone's mind was, at what cost? And what would this mean for the future of human-Sci-Fi relations? As Elena fought for her life in the medical bay, the fate of two worlds hung in the balance, forever changed by the courage of one remarkable human.